Hi, and welcome back to Williams Educational Consultants. I am Wendy Williams, founder of Williams Educational. Today, I'm honored to have Mary Reid Munford with the Traveling School. And Mary Reid, before we get started, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me and teach me and my viewers more about the Traveling School. But before you do that, will you just give us a little bit of background information about how you got into the world of admissions and ending up with the Traveling School?
Yeah. I went to Princeton University and grad school at Harvard, and after that, I did teacher certification there as well, and I've been a high school teacher ever since. And after a couple years during COVID, I was looking for a little bit of a change of pace, and so that's what took me into the admissions world. And I decided to look into the traveling school, which was a place where I taught early in my career. I had taught in Southern Africa for them and was excited to sort of cycle back to that in a totally new role.
So, with that experience of just teaching abroad and being a part of so many different communities and cultures, what would you recommend for viewers that might be thinking about experiencing that in the classroom, but outside the classroom?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Like, if no, you're good. If others are thinking about traveling and learning experiences, but are kind of uncertain and have some anxiety, as somebody that has been on both sides, what would you suggest?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing I can say is just that I can't overstate the power of these kinds of programs. Um, the amount of like confidence that's built over the course of these programs, the greater understanding of the world and empathy for other humans and different ways that people live. I think that there's almost no better way to do this, and high school is such a good age to start. Hopefully, it's a lifelong process, but high school is such a good time to start this. And it's totally scary to have your child go do something like this, but there are some really great programs like ours that you can, ask the right questions, ask about safety, ask about academics, um, and then try to let them go.
Well, tell me a little bit about what is the traveling school?
Yeah, so the traveling school is a semester program for high school girls, and we have students that are ages 15 to 18, so 10th to 12th grade, which sounds crazy, but it's only 16 students, so it can work. So it can work in all the three of those grades together. They have four teachers, and so it's this group of 20, a really close-knit group that travels around a specific region for a semester. Our fall semesters are usually, and our upcoming one is definitely in Southern Africa, and our spring semester is in South America. And we also developed a really cool Western US program during COVID. Um, and we're hoping to bring that back at some point, but we're not sure yet. And we're fully accredited. So academic credits they transfer back to your home high school. You do have to talk to your high school in advance to ensure, but all our students come back on track to graduate. And um, one of the coolest things about it, I think, is the place-based nature of the education. So I think a common problem in high school is feeling like, "Oh, why does this matter? Why do I need to do pre-calculus or like whatever?" And our courses are all rooted in where you are. So like in science, next fall they might be observing and doing field studies of elephants in Botswana. For history in the spring, they might be walking the Inca Trail with our friend Puma, who's a local guide and archaeologist and shaman, and that complements what they're reading in class. Um, so it's a really cool place-based academics. You see exactly why your academics matter. Um,
There was a news article this morning that I saw through LinkedIn, I believe it was, and it was about how college students are getting really bored with curriculum. They're just not engaged. And there's this sense of how do we approach education and connect with the student. And I mean, to think about the traveling school, I know you said 16 lucky
Mhm.
female applicants that get to go and participate. But if it was open up to everybody, what an amazing way to learn.
Yeah.
Can't imagine studying with elephants or learning from somebody that is, just so knowledgeable in their own culture and community. It's really fascinating to me. So I love the work that you all are doing for these students. Um, what do you think a student, an applicant really needs to be a good fit for your program?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like the main thing that we're looking for is somebody who's curious about the world.
Mhm.
Um, and embedded in that needs to be some sort of sense of adventure and the willingness to extend your comfort zone, because this isn't in anybody's comfort zone.
Right.
um, it's not like you're going to be the only one who's nervous. Like, it's a scary, exciting thing, but that's a huge piece of why it's so powerful. So, we're looking for open-minded and, ready to work and live and study in a small group. You have to really, be a part of a small community on the road, and you build amazing friendships along the way. But we definitely have students who, there's some camping and obviously a lot of traveling involved, but we have students who've never done much of either. They're just really willing to step up and expand their horizons and do something new.
And they literally are traveling. So you and I spoke earlier, and you were telling me about how they come over with their book bags and all the things that they're bringing, and y'all go through to make sure it's right. Are there any fun things that you all have had to say, okay, that's awesome, but you need to keep it here. We won't need this where we're going, or uh-oh, you might need to go get this. Is there any fun
Yeah.
example?
Oh, there's plenty of things that people try to put in, and we're just like, you just don't have room. I mean, usually the main culprit is just more clothes. We're like, I'm
Right,
sorry, you just actually only need, 4 t-shirts. And
right.
like, but that's not for every day of the week. You're like, yeah, it's fine. And often, honestly, the parents are the ones that are like, no, they need all these things, and the kid's like, fine.
We're good. I love it.
Yeah.
So yes, you were talking about what is the right fit, and that sense of curiosity, I think, is something that definitely stands out, and the sense of adventure and open-mindedness to what the world is going to offer, and building those relationships. I can only imagine those cohort groups and how tight they are, and the long-lasting friendships. So you have taught before through this program, and you had your own cohort group, right?
Yes. Yes, I
And
did.
and those relationships are still there and thriving.
They are. Somewhere in my apartment, I have a picture of me with my advisees when we were on safari. And it's also been really fun for me to see them. Now they're doing independent travels with each other. And three of them went to university or graduate school abroad. They've been doing, really cool things. One of them is now back working for an international aid agency, and another one's getting her master's in economics at the University of London. Like, there's just really cool stuff. And they're still in touch and traveling with each other, which is really wonderful to see.
That's fantastic. Okay, another question I have, just because I know that the traveling school is a semester, and it is something that's super important in terms of those academics, those credits, so students don't miss a beat and graduate on time. What do you do with students on how they need to make sure that the academics fit the high school program? So how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think sometimes people forget, like, they're like, oh, that sounds like such a fun trip. Like, it is also very academic. Like, we're very rigorous academically. Um, and so schools sometimes have that misconception too. But, and it looks different from school to school. But we have a amazing curriculum guide. And basically, we pair that with an academic credit transfer form that you take to your school counselor's office and say, hey, I'm interested in this thing. Will we accept these credits transferred? And essentially, most schools, accept transfer credits all the time. People are moving in and out. It's just, it takes a little bit of an explanation to be like, oh, no, but I'm coming back.
Right.
And Most schools accept our honors courses as honors credit, and you may be doing African literature, but they'll accept it as an English literature credit. World history, things like that. And you may not be aligned exactly with what your peers are learning at home, but it's accepted as credit so that you can just jump back into what your peers are learning when you get back.
Right.
Um, we do have to get creative when it comes to like working around math. 16 students, that means 16 different levels of math. Like just nobody's on the same page. It's really, really tough. So we offer like a financial literacy class and a statistics class, and sometimes we do different other classes depending on what people need. And same with AP and IB curriculum. We've had a lot of students work around it, but it does mean sometimes you have to get a little bit more creative if you miss a semester of a class like that. And, but we've had, in Atlanta alone, we've had a student from Druid Hills High School, Decatur Public Schools, Lovett, Pace, Paideia. Like we've had really fantastic public and private schools make it work.
That's awesome. I was going to ask a question about the credit and when it transfers back in. I'm guessing because you know how most schools don't operate on the same timing. So you've got the quarter system, the block, and the semester. That can be very, very tricky. So I'm sure they do have to be very creative in bringing that semester back into their home classroom. I guess one question I have about that is when it comes to the classroom learning experience and taking that semester off to do your program, there's actually two questions. One is, do the counselors just keep their profile open? Is that how it is so that they know that they're coming back and so they still have all that availability to them? Is that the way it usually works? No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, and it's closer to how like a university would do with a semester abroad. You know,
Gotcha.
they're
Okay.
sort of like, you're still a student with us, but we know you're not here, and we'll fill in those credits once we submit an official transcript. We don't grant we're not like a degree granting institution in any way, but we do issue, official transcripts that then your school can sort of say, okay, you get these credits.
How are tests done? Like the grading with the traveling school?
It, I mean, so as a teacher, that was one of the things. I was like, wait, I have a paper grade book. Very old school. And I guess maybe that I haven't said that yet. Like this is pretty much tech free for students.
Yes.
They don't have laptops. They don't have phones. Um, they'll have occasional access to stuff like, the internet on a computer. And I call home to parents, I promise. Parents aren't left in in the lurch. But it does make academics really different, and I think really refreshing, especially after all the Zoom that we've been all doing. Um, and I mean, it's old fashioned. You handwrite your papers, and the teachers take a stack of papers, and they're grading it by hand and giving handwritten comments, and tests the same. I mean, teachers might go to town and photocopy a test. They're not going to write it all out, but it really is, but and because it's such a tight knit group, it's pretty easy and natural to do a lot of like verbal feedback in a way that I never had time in a bigger class
Right.
to be like, okay, let's talk about your paper. Let's actually have like a 10-minute conversation about your paper.
Right.
And then but we do formal grades. Like you have assignments that are graded, you have tests, you have essays, you have things like that. And at the midterms, students and parents get a midterm grade report that has a narrative written about each student in every class, as well as a number grade. And so you have a sense of like a snapshot of how your student is doing academically in the middle, and then the same thing at the end.
That's awesome. I can only imagine the recommendation letters that are written from teachers like yourself to the college admissions side, because I can't even think about that piece being not spoken about, because you know them so well inside and out. So that too is really great. Now, with the parents that don't get to speak to their child and wonder, where are they? Are they safe? Are they hungry? Are they are they passing,
Right.
the grades? I guess it would be very hard for parents at first, but I'm I'm sure, like you said, you check in, you let them know how they're doing. Is there a way for parents to reach out in case they need something or just feeling anxious or overwhelmed about that?
Yes, definitely. So we do a couple of things sort of like proactively. One of the main things is we have a parent blog that's it's private behind the scenes because we don't, for security and safety reasons, we're not going to be like, oh, this group of students is exactly here right now. But you should know where your child is.
Yeah,
So, we have like a password protected blog where parents can log in and see what their students were doing. Sometimes it's written by the students, sometimes it's written by the teachers. Um, our head office goes to do a site visit in the middle around midterms. And so, they'll do an update. They also do a big mail drop so you can actually send good old fashioned mail to your student.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah. And then otherwise, like we always have one of our head office, either our academic dean, executive director, or assistant academic dean is always like on call. So it's the kind of thing that, if something is going on and you need to reach us or reach your kid, like we can definitely do that. And we're talking to the teachers all the time.
Right,
So the head office communication with the teachers is really tight. Um, so there's a couple of ways like that kind of the communication keeps moving.
right.
And um, yeah.
So that's good. Where is the home office? Because it's not in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm in Atlanta, but the home office is in Bozeman, Montana.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So
it's really
that's really great because you get to travel probably to Montana and abroad
cute. A little bit.
a
It's
little bit. What would you say in terms of students? What kind of impact does the traveling school have on them?
Yeah. So, it's the kind of thing when whenever I hear students talk about the traveling school, I'm not kidding, I tear up. Like it's amazing. And there's a quote from one of our alums that's like, um, it's basically saying like the traveling school didn't change me. It made me more myself. It made me more confident, more ready to be a force for good in the world, more ready to make good choices. And that just to me that's the crux of it. That's like students come back more secure on who they are and who they are in the world and what they can do. They feel like they can do hard things. Um,
Right.
and at least as a teacher in the US, I thought that was one of the things that kids struggled with the most was this sense of like, you know, not feeling autonomous or like they had control or, feeling like maybe they couldn't do hard things. And so students come back ready to make much more confident decisions about their future and be more open to the world and different ways of living and, different versions of success and whatever that is to them. Um, and then, that goes forward into college and every student is different. Every student's on their own path. Like some girls go to elite colleges. I had a student who went to Yale and that's the one who's now at University of London for grad school. Others go to small liberal arts colleges because they're like, oh my gosh, I love this tiny environment. I don't want a tight knit thing. And then others are psyched to have a public university. We also have a local alum who's finishing up at Georgia Tech right now in engineering. And others take a gap year or make other good choices for themselves. But they and their parents feel a lot better about it because it's not like a blind decision. They've like seen a little bit of, the world and they're ready to sort of make more confident choices.
And I'm sure too, when they come back, they're, I don't know, more comfortable with maybe not being successful at everything or trying something and not doing it the best that they could because they're
Yeah.
used to, having those experiences, those new experiences. I think working with students, one of the things that I find that's very similar across the board from all kinds of different backgrounds is that just fear of failure and that rejection piece and the fear of what students will say if others find out or it's just it's super difficult with I think this generation in particular when it comes to that. They're scared to try new things because they may not be great at it, but the beauty is to try.
Right.
You
Yeah,
learn something from it. You really
exactly. I think that that's a huge piece of this. And I mean, so we also do like outdoor, um, they're like outdoor pursuits is one of our key pillars as well. And so, like we think about things like rock climbing where it's like it feels terrifying
right.
and yet it's actually really safe and you can do it. And then we like talk about that as a metaphor because there's so many things that are like that where it's like, this feels terrifying. And what if I'm bad at it? But actually, most things are, safe. There is a safety net. There's some sort of, you know, it it's good to take those risks and push yourself, even if it doesn't always work out.
Absolutely. Um, Tell me, how do others find the traveling school?
Yeah, so people find us through a lot of different interesting ways. The two major ways are word of mouth. I think for such a unique program, word of mouth is really powerful. And we're always willing to put people in touch with someone who's been to the traveling school or a parent who's dealt with the traveling school. But and the other one is just internet searches. We'll find students that are saying like traveling school, high school, or like abroad high school. And then we're also part of an amazing network called the Semester Schools Network.
Okay.
And that is all schools that are like this. And you leave for a semester, you come back. And there's 9 in the US. We've all existed for, I think the minimum was like 5 or 6 years to even join. And they all have different focus. So like there's one that's more politics focused and public policy, and there's another that's organic farming in Vermont, and another that's art in California. So there's some really cool different schools like this as well that sometimes we'll have students whose sibling will go to one school and they'll go to the other one because they're kind of interested in something different. So that network could be a good resource.
Absolutely. I'll put that up on the information at the bottom here. Tell me, I want to know, Mary Reid, what brings you joy? I know you're so busy with what you do for a living and reaching out to students. What do you find joy in?
I think maybe unsurprisingly, I love travel.
When you're gonna say that?
Yeah. And I'm very outdoorsy. So like even when I, don't have the time or money or, whatever to travel, capacity to travel, I'm a big fan of being outside. And I'm a big runner too. So if I don't have time for anything else, I'll go on a quick jog or go hiking at Kennesaw or do something like that close by. So pretty much anything to be outside and anything to explore a new place.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I truly know that the viewers are going to love learning about the traveling school, and I really appreciate the time today that you took to be with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was
All
great.
right. Have a great day, Mary Reid.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.